Right, so in this corner of the workshop, right in the corner, I've got my dust extractor. Corners are an ideal place to put an extractor. You don't have any lengths of wood to put through, so you're not wasting any space on that score. Corners are usually a redundant area. Tricky to get a piece of machinery in a corner. The drill press is a potential candidate. If you use the drill press a lot, like for example, you can get mortise and attachments for drill presses, which I don't recommend personally. I've had them before and they're not very good. But if budget's an issue and that's what you're going to do, you may want space either side of the drill press, so a corner is maybe not such a good idea for you. But if you're like me and you've got a mortiser and you've got a drill press and you've got the space to have them separately, that's the way to go. But again, putting it on casters gives you the versatility to move it around at a later date. Dust extractors in the corner don't really take up any space. That's a pro. The con is for dust extraction piping and tube work, and if you want to put ducting in, that's really expensive. Putting it in a corner is giving you the max run to get to machines across the workshop, so it's really good if space is an issue. It can be quite expensive to have it in a corner, but you know, we'll go through that in more depth when I do the dust extraction video. We were talking about primary and secondary walls. Now, a primary wall, I call a primary wall, is a wall that it's got no obstructions, so you've got an unobstructed run right the way across the wall. So the back wall where I've got the window and where I had the chop saw, so I've got space either side to be able to put long lengths of wood there. This back wall originally had no obstructions in, so it's ideal for the planer because I need space either side. However, I've got machinery and I need storage for it. I need somewhere to put the thickness when I'm not using it, and the drill press, and I've obviously got the cabinet for all my flammables and finishes and whatnot. So this has kind of become a half-y-half. So what I've ended up doing is I've ended up pulling the planer off the wall by about 2 feet. So if you look down the bed of the planer, I've got an unobstructed run with a good 6 to 8 feet either side of the planer, which is why I don't really need to move that. Now, the disadvantage with that is obviously I've lost 2 feet of space, but I'll explain why that isn't an issue in just a second. My bobbin sander, a couple of reasons why this is here. I've got a bobbin sander here, I've got a belt and a disc sander right next to it. So this is kind of the sanding area. The extractor here, it's the two closest machines to the extractor. This creates a lot of dust. It's dust that I don't want to get in the atmosphere, and the extraction is the most efficient in this corner, and that's where I've got the tools that create the most hazardous dust. There's that. This is here specifically. I should have it on casters, but it's quite light, it's pretty easy to move. So I use the space behind to store man-made boards. Whenever I buy a man-made board 8 foot by 4 foot, the first thing I do, as soon as I can, I rip it down lengthways and I quarter it. I end up with quarter sheets. They're all about 4 foot by 2 foot, and I just line them up against here. The ideal would be to lie them flat. Everyone will tell you that. If you don't have the space, that's what you've got to do, and that's what I do. So the next machine next to the bobbin sander, I've got like a static sanding station, which is a vertical belt sander and a 12-inch disc sander. This is a secondary wall. It's a secondary wall because there's an obstruction, the obstruction being the door from the house into the garage, which means I can't have a machine on this wall that requires a continuous run left and right, because obviously that will block the door. So this is a good machine to utilise this space where I can't have anything. I've got my bandsaw on one side, so I can feed stuff through, and I've got this the disc sander on the other side. I've primarily used this machine really for chisels. I've made a little jig. I wrote an article some time ago. I can't actually remember whether they published that one or not. If they don't, I'll show you that jig at some point in the future in a different video. I do an initial sharpening on that, and then I go to I take the chisels or the plane irons or whatever and do the final honing by a different method. But essentially, every length, all the stock or anything I'm doing on that, short pieces, or the short chisels, or maybe I'm doing a picture frame and I just want to take a sliver off or just adjust an angle with a mitre gauge. And this is a really good tool for that. So this is a perfect space, never have anything of any real length. So good machine for that. Then again, storage. So I've got 2 drawers below. I haven't bothered putting it on casters because there's not really anywhere else I can go. So it saves you a bit of money there. All my sanding material, my sanding discs, pads, paper, all of that. It all gets stored in that. So all of this, so this whole kind of quarter, or this wall of the garage from the door this way, is all to do with sanding. So I've got the bandsaw here again. Lengths running through the bandsaw don't tend to be very long. You can do tenon on it. I do have a tenon jig for the table saw, which I don't use that much. Since I've gone to getting the domino, rarely do tenons full stop, rarely use the mortiser, rarely cut any tenons on this. The kitty This is a 613, I believe it is. Donkey's old 1980s machine. This will go all the way up to a 1-inch wide blade. For a bandsaw this size, that's like really big capacity. That's why I bought it. I really only use it for resawing. I do book match panels and you know, boards like that. So it's always got a fairly wide blade in 3/4 of an inch, something like that. And because it's for like door panels and things like that, never really more than 3 feet long, and that's about what I've got here. I've got a 3-foot capacity before I get to the blade. I can pull it. Obviously, I can just pull the bandsaw further out to clear the disc sander if I need it. But again, that's really rare. Probably in 3 or 4 years, I've probably pulled it out twice. So that's been quite a handy place to put it. The final and last space in the workshop. This is from my most recent acquisition, which I got a few months ago. It's a wide, open-ended drum sander. And again, the last few projects I've done have had a lot of panel work in. There's been tons of sand on it and it's taken forever. This machine's going to be a godsend for projects like that, which I intend to do in the past. It's on casters, so again, you'd be surprised how little capacity you need. It is kind of in the same kind of vein as a thicknesser in that you need space both before and after. Because it's mainly for panel work, unless I was doing a tabletop or something like that, I don't need a lot of capacity. I do have to pull it out to use it, and I'll have to move it out the way if I was doing something on the bandsaw. But that's really the only tool in the shop that I would have to do that. There is a possibility that I may move it to the back next to the thicknesser, and that will mean I shouldn't have to move it as much, or certainly I can get to the bandsaw without having to move it. That's really there only because I've run out of space everywhere else. So the final piece of machinery, big piece of machinery, which is the main piece of machinery, which is your table saw. Now a lot of people on forums and on videos will say that it's the main workhorse of your shop, and there was a time when I used to think that you could get away with a bandsaw, and that view's changed. It's personal opinion. If you're doing a lot of tenon work and you rely heavily on a bandsaw to cut all of your tenons, that might be the case for you. But for versatility wise, when you talk about panels, I mean, I do have a tenon and jig up on the wall, which is for the table saw. I don't really use the bandsaw for tenons. Would I use it if I didn't have a table saw? Well, you know, now that I've got the Domino, to be honest, I rarely do any tenons on either the table saw or the bandsaw. I rarely do any mortises on the mortiser either, because the Domino tends to have taken over. It's a huge time saver, but maybe again I'll do a video on that later on. But so this is in the middle of the workshop. Originally when I was doing the workshop I had a magic figure in my head which was 8 feet, and that's probably come from man-made boards, the 8-foot by 4-foot sheet material. Wherever I could, I've tried to get 8 feet on both sides of any of the machinery. 8 feet either side of the chop saw, 8 feet either side of the planer. Now I originally had 8 feet or so to this side of the table saw, but I didn't have on the other side. I just didn't have the room. I had about 6 feet. On behind the camera person at this time is the garage door, and I reckon that if I had to put an 8-foot long length of material through, all I have to do is open the garage door. So in theory I could push this table saw quite a bit more towards that wall and have some more floor space. The reality is I've never had to do that. It's very, very rare that you ever run any 8-foot material through. I tend to cut down, do an initial cut of 8-foot by 4-foot sheets down with a straight edge and a handheld circular saw, simply because it's more manageable. There's nothing worse than trying to put a 8-foot by 4-foot sheet of material through a table saw, and it's not the safest thing in the world. Possible, it's probably the limits of the capacity of this kind of saw, but personally I'd rather rip it in half, so I've got two 4-foot square sections first, and then run it through this. So 4 feet both before and after your table saw in 99% of the cases is more than sufficient, which is why when the amount of machines started becoming excessive on this wall and I decided to pull the planer forward, I've lost about a foot or two. So I originally had 8 feet here, and that's probably gone down to about 6. Never had an issue with that, never had a problem to move it. Most table saws, you need some kind of outfeed table to support the work as it goes through. This table saw came with an outfeed table which was about 2 feet square. It seemed daft just to have a 2-foot square section of outfeed table and nothing else on that side of the room, so I've kind of made it's a bit of a banged, bashed together work table which doubles as a workbench and it doubles as my outfeed table. And again, it's a great space saver. Take away the fence, move it all the way over there, wind down the blade, take off the crown guard, and you've effectively got a 4-foot wide table. This has got a sliding table, so which is why the outfeed table is pushed over to this way, so it gives enough room for the siding table to move into, which is why it's ever so slightly offset. But again, not had any issues with that at all. And so that's it really. So a lot of people think that if you get a combination machine in the middle of the room, then that's going to save you space, because why wouldn't it? Because I've got a machine over there and I've got a machine over here, and effectively a lot of them will combine a planer and a thicknesser and a table saw and a spindle moulder, so it's just a heavier duty version of a router table, all in one unit, which is about the same size as this. And I could see why you would think that, but most of the people I know who've actually bought them, you tend to find that while the machines themselves are compact, you need space all the way around them on all four sides, and you need a defined area. So a lot of times it actually takes up more space than individual machines. So what it comes down to is thinking about the space that you have. So you've got your primary walls, figure out which are your primary walls in your workshop and keep those walls free for the machines that need long lengths, like your mortiser, like your planer, like your chop saw. And then have a look at your secondary walls and think about what machines you can put to maximise the space, to use the dead space where there's obstructions like doors or pipe work or supporting walls or anything like that. And think about storage, think three-dimensionally, think vertically, think about putting storage up high. I've got a lot of timber stacked up high. Anything I don't use on a regular basis all goes up into the eaves, all goes kind of up in the roof space up above. So that's it really. If you stick to a 6 foot or thereabouts ideal space either side of materials needing, machines needing you know, long lengths, planer, chop saw, 6 feet either side, table saw 90% of the time, 4 feet forwards and backwards. If you draw that out on a piece of paper and move things around on the piece of paper until those areas fit, overlap the areas and the spaces whenever you can. To be honest, I mean, you know, I'm not trying to brag or anything, but I did a lot of work and a lot of thinking about how to utilise this kind of space. Never had any problems with it, haven't really had to move virtually anything ever since I've started. Very little gets in the way. So only recently with the wide drum sander that I'm going to have to start pulling machinery out. That winds it up for video 3. The next video I'm going to do on dust extraction and electrics. I was going to do it all in one video, but obviously this one's gone on way too long. So the dust extraction one's quite interesting, probably more interesting in this video, but I'll speak to you about that in a bit.